Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. Absolutely loads to go through in today's video. So let's kick off with this actually. So Man United ended secret talks over record-breaking Amazon series deal for well in excess of £10 million off after months of dialogue. So that came from David Ornstein saying that United were going to do like a, like the Amazon series is the documentaries behind the scenes and stuff, and we're in negotiations with Amazon regarding it for a £10 million deal. But that deal is off. The reason it's off is that even though Omar Barada expressed support for the Amazon proposal pending feasibility and football department backing, however, Amorim opposed the project, viewing it as inappropriate distraction for the first team amid ongoing issues. So, and I respect Amorim's decision on that as well. I also respect Omar Barada and everyone like that also, giving Amorim the opportunity and the input on that as well, because I don't think previous regimes would have just looked at the 10 million quid and thought, yeah, okay, we're going to do it, regardless of the situation on the pitch or the impact that it potentially could have had on the team. So I actually respect Omar Barada and everyone like that for actually, taking Ruben Amorim's advice on that to say this is not the time. As much as I would want to see that series and watch it, I don't think now is the appropriate time. Like, we need to get back to actually being a football team and playing and being, and playing football rather than all this other distractions. I think it's going to be a lot of, uncertainty anyway this season with Amorim and the change and, everything like that that's going to be going on. I actually think Amorim's made a smart decision there by saying, no, now's not the time to be doing this sort of nonsense. Maybe in the future, because we've just got way too many issues at the moment to have that as as another distraction as well, and also putting that as pressure on the players as well. So I actually respect the decision for doing that, as much as I would want to watch it. But interesting that they were in negotiations in order to do that. I'd probably come at some point in time because other teams have done it, and United would be, that would be a record deal for Amazon, £10 million. I just don't think the £10 million is worth it at this moment in time, because we need to focus on the pitch. We need to focus on actually, can we win football games, consistently this season? That would be a nice thing to concentrate on rather than this as a distraction. But that would have been really, really interesting. I was thinking the other day, actually, I'd love to be like a fly on the wall, especially if, obviously it's been announced now that these players are not coming back. But I was thinking the other day, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for like training when Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, Garnacho all have to come back. I'd love to be a fly on the wall to watch that. So this would have been good timing just for that particular exchange, but not going to happen. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Right, let's go through some transfer news. So Manchester United are weighing up a move to sign free agent Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now that came from TalkSport. This follows on from the report I brought you the other day, coming from The Sun, which I did say to take with a pinch of salt because it's coming from The Sun, linking us with a move for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. TalkSport have also said we're weighing up a move for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So if you've got TalkSport and The Sun confirming the story, that just leads me to believe that it is bollocks, because they're not the most credible sources of information. What's come out since then, though, is Romano has said that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been offered to a number of clubs, including Manchester United. There are no updates about it at this moment. And then also Danny Rust and Dean Jones have said the following, that Manchester United have been offered the chance to sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin as a free agent, according to Gimme Sports sources, but any potential deal is off as influential figures stopped short of engaging in prolonged discussions due to identifying his injury record as a major red flag when going in search of fresh firepower. So I'm pleased to see that people at the club have done some research or even just a quick Google check on Calvert-Lewin's injury record. Not that you'd need to be a genius to know that he's had injury problems over the last few years. And the Athletic was saying that Manchester United have been offered the chance to sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Jamie Vardy and Callum Wilson. It is expected that United would only advance on these, if at all, towards the end of the window if they do not get any of their top targets. So in summary, on all of that, it looks like United have been offered Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and as well as other players, which is coming from agents just doing their job and, ringing clubs and saying, look, my client's available, not because we're planning to sign them or sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin because his agents are shopping him around. I'm pleased that they've acknowledged the injury issues with Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. And I expect these would be like plan Zs if we go anywhere near any of those sort of players, being honest. And being truthful, I would prefer to keep Højlund and maybe give Cheeto some chances rather than going anywhere near any of those deals, regardless of how desperate we might become at the end of the transfer window. So yeah, we can, I think, put that one to bed, because I don't think they're going to go anywhere near Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Now, keeping with the striker, so Manchester United are closely monitoring Moise Kean, whose €52 million release clause is active until July 15th. Among Premier League clubs, United have shown the strongest interest. So that came from Mark Critchley and Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic. Good sources of information as well, suggesting that Moise Kean is a striker that we are paying attention to because of that release clause. There have been reports that I've been bringing you over the last week or so as well regarding Kean, saying the same thing, that United are in. A lot of them have been coming, though, from Italian outlets, which I don't know the credibility of entirely. So interesting that The Athletic and specifically Laurie Whitwell are now picking up on that as well, to say that he is potentially someone we could look at because of that release clause that's active until July 15th. It means we would need to get a move on the deal, and how quickly United are moving in the transfer market at the moment is, at a snail's pace, considering the length of time that it's taken us to, get this far in the Mbeumo deal, which we'll go through the updates on him in a bit as well. So, but it could be one potentially. He is one to pay attention to, I think. But whether it will actually go for him or not, we'll need to wait and see. But yeah, he has been linked with us multiple times, and we've had conversations regarding him before as well. Not particularly outstanding in terms of any of his stats or data or anything like that. Like, it's not one that jumps out that's suggests, oh, that's an interesting option. He is more of a penalty box striker, though. I think he's adapted into becoming like a bit more of a finisher inside the penalty area. Good running at players as well, because he's quite good at take on. So we know that that's important for Amorim as well. Had a decent season for Fiorentina, 25 now, 44 appearances, 25 goals, 3 assists. So not the worst idea I've heard of. It's just, again, it's not one that particularly gets me excited if we were going for Kean. The flip side of that, though, what if he's... I was thinking about this before doing the video, and hear me out on this. We've just recruited and got a load of data analysts to come in and start looking at the data and looking at the numbers to get profiling of players. What if these sort of signings that we're linked with are just data signings, where they tick the boxes of what we want in terms of a profile or from an analytical perspective? What if Kean actually fits the mold of what we're looking for regarding that? And you can't have it both ways. So I can't say, well, we need to get the data analysis because we're not doing it. We haven't been doing it for years, and it's the modern approach to football and sports science and all this jazz, and then complain if it leads us to a player that's not particularly popular or not one that's particularly exciting. But we'll just need to wait and see what happens regarding it. He's a name, actually probably a more viable name now that we know, we're not going anywhere near Osimhen. Gyökeres is going to Arsenal. They would have been the two probably, best options available on the market. And Mateta's another one. He's looking like he's still potentially staying at Palace. We're going down the pecking order in terms of strikers, and I would put Kean with Watkins as probably the two names that have been most heavily linked with us recently. So it is potentially a viable option, but we'll have to wait and see. Give us your thoughts, though, on Kean in the comments. I know you have in previous videos, but now that obviously we know we're not getting Gyökeres, what do you think of Moise Kean as a potential striker option? Good shout, bad shout? Let us know below. Now, keeping with strikers, there's a possibility Manchester United go for Ollie Watkins, while an inquiry has been made for Hugo Ekitike. That was came from TalkSport, who I would say take with a pinch of salt, but we know that anyway. Ekitike, we've had a conversation about, or we've made an inquiry. I think I think it was blown out of proportion, though, the actual nature of that conversation. I think it was just an inquiry to work out the price and the salary and bits as well. Ollie Watkins, I think we've done the same with as well. So they would potentially be another two options. Watkins, maybe Ekitike is the third option, but he'd need to drastically, or they would need to drastically reduce his asking price, because I don't think we're going to go anywhere near £85 million for Hugo Ekitike. But we'll have to see what happens, because the main thing we're concentrating on at the moment is Mbeumo. So let's go through all the latest there. Now, James Ducker from The Telegraph said United's immediate focus is on finalising a deal for Brentford forward Bryan Mbeumo, and they are hoping for a breakthrough this week, after which Amorim is also targeting a striker and a central midfielder. We've just gone through the striker news. We'll go through the midfield news in a second as well. So James Ducker saying that our immediate focus is on Mbeumo, and we're hoping to get a deal done this week. And just on that as well, all the media reports and that were saying that we wanted the deal, that deadline, which was Monday, which has obviously passed, and we've not got any deal done for yesterday. Bryan Mbeumo's still on his holiday. I was on his Instagram earlier, and he's still in America. So he's not due back for pre-season training until next week. So that's absolutely load of waffle as well, isn't it? Because if he's not actually due back from his holiday until next week, surely it would make more sense that next week's the deadline anyway, because if he's on his holiday, what difference does it make whether we'd signed him this week if he's still in the States? We can still get the deal done for next week. So actually next week seems to be more of maybe a deadline going off of that. Laurie Whitwell, though, was saying that negotiations continue with Brentford over the signing of Bryan Mbeumo. United's most recent offer of £55 million plus a further £7 million in add-ons was rejected. So again, James Ducker, Laurie Whitwell suggesting that talks are still ongoing. Fabrizio Romano said Manchester United keep working on Bryan Mbeumo, and there are many rumours on several players from Italy, Spain. I guarantee you again that this week that Manchester United are fully focused on Bryan Mbeumo deal with conversations still underway. They keep working on this deal for Mbeumo. There is still an agreement to reach with Brentford, but I'm told that the conversation are ongoing and they try to reach the agreement to let the player travel and complete his move. So Romano basically saying, look, there's no noise, all the noise around potentially other players and stuff is not happening because United are fully focused on going from Mbeumo. So we're not working on bringing in any other players until we get this deal done. And then the final story is on Mbeumo. Well, the latest is coming from the Standard Sport, who are very close to Brentford, saying that Bryan Mbeumo is growing increasingly frustrated as Manchester United weigh up a third bid to sign him. Brentford have also become frustrated with the slow progress of the deal. So where have we heard that before? Like that feels exactly like United's transfer window, where even the player starts to become frustrated that there's no movement. That's standard United transfers, and even Brentford have become frustrated at the slow process of the deal. But if it's Brentford moving the goalposts and they've got themselves to blame, but going off of that report, that would maybe suggest that it's United that are holding the deal up. So the reality is we don't know what's going on. The only thing we know about Mbeumo and that situation is probably the player is frustrated regarding it. And we're just still in negotiations. That's it. That's really all that's going on. There's not any significant movement either way. And we need to wait and see actually what the hold-up is or what's going on regarding the situation, because it's incredibly frustrating. And I share your frustration in the comments as well regarding the situation. Like, I don't know why there hasn't been any movement on this deal, where we've had, pretty decent sources coming out and saying that, that everyone's been expecting this bid to go through. Everyone was expecting it to go through last week, and something's happened. So whether it is, United not wanting to pay or still trying to work out the nature of the add-ons because we don't have the money, or if it's Brentford asking for a little bit more money and we're refusing the budge. It can only be one of those two, in my opinion. But give us your thoughts and feelings and that on the comments below, as I'm sure that you will, regarding the situation. But yeah, incredibly frustrating. That's my feelings towards it as well. So I share your feelings on that as well in the comments below. So right, let's go through some other news. So going back to the midfield then, from what James Ducker was saying. So Manchester United have open talks with Atalanta for Ederson. Atalanta have set a price tag at 60 million euros. Now that came from Go Brazil, who are normally fairly decent actually, suggesting that United have open talks with Atalanta for Ederson. Ederson's a name that we always get linked with, but, Romano was saying there we're not working on anybody else. We're working on Mbeumo. So I don't know, how realistic that is, that we're not got Mbeumo done and yet we're going to go and spend £60 million on Ederson, unless we're potentially opening up talks and we're prepared to walk away from Mbeumo, and then we'll go for Ederson instead, and then maybe get a midfielder in instead of Mbeumo, or instead of another number 10, and then go to the striker. Because at some point in time a decision needs to be made on Mbeumo, whether we carry on the negotiations or we walk away and spend that money in another area. So maybe that could be plausible, that maybe they've reached out and said, okay, well, we'll start the negotiations here just in case something goes wrong with the Mbeumo deal and then we pivot to Ederson maybe. I don't know. I'd like to see us pivot to a striker rather than a midfielder necessarily if we do walk away from the Mbeumo deal. But yeah, it just feels a little bit like he's a name we're linked with constantly, but there's not really been, is it a viable target? Probably, but have we got the money to do that? Depends on exits, but we'll keep an eye on it for you. One play that might be more realistic is Luiz. So let's go through the latest there. So Juventus have set a €25 million price tag for Douglas Luiz. Manchester United have made recent inquiries that came from Rudy Galletti. He's a player that we are linked with, more so involved in a deal regarding Jadon Sancho and going to Juventus as well. But again, €25 million, which is what we're effectively asking for Sancho. And we've made recent inquiries, but I do think he's a player that Romano's linked us with Luiz in January. So I do think he's maybe a player that we've got interest in. Whether we'll follow through on that interest or not, or whether we'll end up doing a deal with Juventus for Sancho, we'll have to wait and see. Amorim is keen to reinforce his midfield. Valencia are not yet aware of United's interest in Javi Guerrera, despite reports. So that was Laurie Whitwell following up on the news yesterday, where it was kind of saying that we'd made an offer or we're close to signing Guerrera, and then it came out saying, no, we're not. We'll wait and see what happens this week, because the likelihood is he's going to sign a new contract at Valencia on Thursday. I think it was the deadline for that. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. Would be a good option, though, and a relatively cheap one as well for, was it 21 to £25 million, I think it was. But we'll wait and see. The reality is he's probably going to sign a new contract at Valencia, isn't he? But we'll see how that plays out. Manchester United are keeping a close eye on Genoa centre-back Coney De Winter as they consider a potential move. That came from Court Offside. Court Offside have got some good journalists working for them and some less credible journalists working for them. This came from one of their less credible journalists and was, whenever I read a story or read a report and it's talking about other clubs, and then further down it says, but Manchester United are also interested, I just instantly feel that it's clickbait, because, there was a story the other day, I can't remember which player it was, but it was linked with Chelsea and Tottenham, and then further down the line in a small paragraph it said, but also Manchester United might be interested in him as well. And when I see that, I just instantly think clickbait. You're just putting Manchester United's name in there to generate views and generate clicks, and that's how I felt with the De Winter story. He is a player we've been linked with a couple of times, though, but not from the most credible sources. And the belief is, I don't think we're going to have the funds this window to go and get a centre-half as well. So, but we'll pay attention to it. I'll bring you any updates if they come out. So Rasmus Højlund faces an uncertain future. He hopes to stay and fight for his place, and spent last week training with Harry Maguire in Portugal to prepare for this week's return to Carrington. So that's good that Rasmus Højlund's been training with our best striker in Harry Maguire. Maybe he can learn a few things from Maguire from last season. But again, Laurie Whitwell, uncertain future. We know that he wants to stay and fight. He's a United fan. Of course, he's going to want to stay at United, but it depends on, obviously, us bringing players in, whether we would need to sell in order to generate some more cash to help us with the rest of the transfer window. So it's one of these with Rasmus. I think he wants to stay. United would probably sell him or loan him out if we get a replacement in, but if we don't, then obviously we're gonna need him for next season. Now, Damarcio was saying, though, interestingly, that Roma will come forward to try to sign Rasmus Højlund in the next days. A loan will be needed, as his €45 million valuation is too high for them. So potentially another Italian club coming in with a loan offer for Højlund. I don't think we would do a loan because we want the cash, unless we do a loan with an obligation to buy. But again, that doesn't help us this transfer window because we need money. That's what we need. We need money in order to spend money. So that's why I do think they're looking at a sale, but we need to keep an eye on that because that potentially could be another option or another team coming in for Rasmus. Although whether they would accept a loan with an obligation to buy, who knows? We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. We need to bring in a striker first before we even think about doing anything with Rasmus Højlund, because, we can't just sell Højlund, bring nobody in. I think that would be crazy, but we'll wait and see what happens there. So Manchester United have put a £30 million price tag on Andre Onana, but the Cameroon goalkeeper looks increasingly likely to stay at Old Trafford this summer. The price was quoted to Monaco when the French club inquired about signing Onana at the end of last month. Monaco will continue to monitor the situation, but are unlikely to pay that much for the 29-year-old keeper. Onana is keen to stay, and club sources say the possibility The probability is that he will remain as United's number one after returning to training at Carrington yesterday. That came from Chris Wheeler, suggesting that we need £30 million for Onana because that's his book value from a PSR perspective, so that makes perfect sense. Monaco aren't going to pay that. I think it was mainly the issue with his wages as well, for Monaco to pay that for Onana. Worryingly, though, it says he's going to stay, but we knew that anyway because there's no real interest. To sell a player, you need teams willing to pay the price and pay his wages, and there isn't any at the moment. But worryingly, he wants that he will remain as United's number one. Now, I know that's going to upset a few of you in the comments below as well, because yeah, it is an area like striker and goalkeeper, are the two areas that I do think we need to massively improve. And it's weird that we're going for 10s as well, but it is what it is. James Ducker, though, said that Ruben Amorim is comfortable with Andre Onana and his goalkeeper next season, even though he wants more competition for Andre Onana's starting goalkeeper position. So James Ducker suggesting the same as what Chris Wheeler was, that we're comfortable to keep Onana next season, but we would like competition for him as well. And that's maybe the route we're going to go down now, because like I said, I don't think we're selling Onana. So we're just going to have to see if we can get somebody in to replace Bayinda, and then give Onana a run for his money and potentially give him something to think about there. One of those players could be John Victor, so that there remains a prospect of United signing another goalkeeper with Botafogo's John Victor, that should say, 29, on a list of potential targets. The addition of another goalkeeper could potentially push Altay Bayinda closer to an exit as well. So that's more likely what's going to happen with the goalkeeper situation. And I actually think John Victor would be, a good goalkeeper to bring in that actually, Onana starts dropping clangers again. I think he can replace him, hopefully. So that it looks like the route we're going to go down, and he's a really cheap option as well. I think his release clause between 5 to 10 million, depending on which report you read regarding John Victor. So that's one to pay attention to, especially if it's come from The Athletic as well. So that means there are more legs in the stories that have been mainly coming from South American sources over the last few days. So that's one to pay attention to potentially. Let's go through the rest of the news. So a prestigious alternative remains in the background for Francisco Conceição. Jadon Sancho, the English outsider, is considered the plan B if the negotiations for Conceição should be complicated. But right now, the priority for Juve is clear. Try to close with Francisco Conceição. Now, that came from Damasio. Apologies for the Google translation there as well, which is really weird because I don't understand that. I don't know if he's saying that the Juventus are going to go for Conceição first before going on to Jadon Sancho, or is Jadon Sancho a backup if they can't get the Conceição deal done? Because Damarcio's been pushing the Sancho to Juventus deal for weeks. He's been one of the leading journalists saying that Juventus want Sancho and close to negotiations and closer than close, and this deal's closer than it was yesterday and closer than it was before. Like, Damarcio's been one of the main journalists pushing that deal. So is he saying now that they're only going to go for Sancho if they don't get Conceição, or is he saying that they're going to want to get Conceição first and then they're going to go on a Jadon Sancho? But either way, please don't kick us in the nuts like that, because the reports have been quite positive regarding an exit for Jadon Sancho, and then to have that thrown away at the last minute because they go for Conceição and then they're like, yeah, up yours, we're not signing Jadon Sancho, would be a massive kick between the legs. But let's just wait and see. We'll have to wait and see regarding that one. That will infuriate me, actually, if that deal doesn't go through and then we end up back in the situation where we'll have to end up loaning Sancho out and paying half of his salary to Dortmund probably for the season. Like, come on. Yeah, I'm not sure how to interpret that from Damarcio, but give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Maybe you can clear it up for me. Real Betis president Ango Harrow has identified Antony's £105,000 a week wages as a major obstacle to making his loan move permanent, while Sancho's high salary is also complicating his departure. So again, came from Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic, saying that they have identified Antony's wages as an obstacle. Well, you knew that anyway. That's really annoying me, the Antony. Like, it really boils my piss, this deal. Why are we in negotiations with a team that can't afford his wages and can't pay him the transfer fee? Like, it makes zero sense. Como can pay Antony his salary and can pay his transfer fee as well. Yet we seem to be facilitating this bullshit with Real Betis when they can't afford his wages and they can't afford his transfer fee. I don't know what we're doing regarding this deal. The only way this makes sense to me is that if Anthony has said, I only want to go to Real Betis and I'll not go to Como and then you'll have to keep me. That's the only reason this deal makes sense to me, because you've got other teams that would pay for Anthony and probably pay him closer to his wages. Yet we seem to be doing this complete bullshit with Real Betis when they can't afford him and can't afford his wages, and it makes no sense to me. Make it make sense in the comments. And the final couple of stories is, so Maxi Oyedele is expected to leave Liga Warsaw, his €6 million release clause, potentially earning Manchester United around £2.58 million due to their 50% sell-on clause. And we're going to get a bit of a windfall from Anthony Elanga to Newcastle as well. That's believed to be between £5 and £8 million. Couple of million quid potentially for Oyedele as well, so we could be in potentially for like a, I don't know, £8 to £10 million windfall for the sell-on clauses with those, and then we could be getting something with Alvaro as well. Remember the reports the other day were suggesting maybe there's interest from the Saudi Pro League and Mason Greenwood. We could get some cash there as well, so hopefully we can get those deals can get moved on, so we can get the cash, so we can move on with our lives as well. But yeah, it could be a little bit of a windfall there. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below, as I am sure that you will. I'm just checking to make sure there's no other news. No, nothing coming out. So, but yeah, give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.